on this computer. All right, I am recording now. All right, so it says write a function that takes in two arguments, an array of names, and a number, negative or positive. The number represents how many positions the names in the array should move. The expected output is the array of names with the names in their new position. All right, so here's an example. Kyle, we have an array of names: Kyle, Stacy, Tina, Kenesha, Greg. And then back of the line accepts an array as an argument, and 2. So the number of positions it moves. So for example, if Kyle has to move 2 positions. It goes 1, 2. So Kyle goes 1, Kyle was initially at index 0, and it moves to index 2 right here. And then likewise with Kenesha initially started right here where Stacy's at and moved to 1 and then 2. So now Kenesha's in the beginning. And then Greg likewise moves 2 positions instead of going, essentially jumps to the front of the line, 1, 2, and there he is. Likewise with, if we get -1, so Kyle moves -1 positions. Kyle was initially at index 0. He moves to the very back of the line as -1. All right. I'm sure there's a more efficient way, the way I'm going to try to do it. So what I'm going to do, depending on which way the person moves or which way the shifts occur, so move to the right, move to the left, is dependent on whether or not the input number of positions is negative or positive. So the first thing I'm going to say, write a function that takes in 2 arguments. One is an array. So it takes in 2 arguments. I'll just say an array and a number. All right. And depending on whether or not the number is positive or negative, the functionality, the shifts are going to occur differently. So I'm going to say, if a number is negative, and then else, do something else. So there's going to be like an if-else statement in there. Else if positive. So if number is positive, do something else. And I'm going to think about, I've got the number of positions I need to move. So I'm just going to use a for loop. I'm going to actually use a while loop. I'm going to start with a counter, and while the number of positions, or while the counter is greater than 0, I'm going to have the user shift. So this is where I'm going to use pop and shift and push and unshift. These are those built-in array methods that, so for example, if the user is, so for this first one, I have to shift 2. So I'm going to pop Tina off, or I'm sorry, I'm going to pop Greg off, move him to the front of the line. That's once. And now to do it twice, I'm going to pop Kenesha off the very end of the line and shift or unshift? It's one of those 2. I don't know off the top of my head. Let's just call it, let's Google it to figure out what that actually is. So if the number is positive, I'm going to use pop and some other method, shift or unshift. Likewise, or vice versa, if it's negative, I'm going to shift or unshift, which is take Kyle out of the first slot and then push him to the back of the line. So this is where I'm going to use these these built-in array methods. So the first thing, so I'm going to have like let counter create a variable counter and assign it to, number, let's just say like array of names and num of positions. Assign it to array, num of positions. And then I'm just going to change this out just so I know specifically what I'm actually talking about here. So create a variable counter, which is going to be my counter, and I'm assigning to this value initially. So in this first, I'm going to say while counter is greater than 0, I'm going to do something. I'm going to pop pap person as person in array off, and then insert into the beginning of the array. It's going to be like shift or unshift. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's say that. I'll Google what this is. And then else, then since it's a while loop, I'll need to decrement the counter by 1. And then just do that, but the opposite for the next while loop. So I'm going to copy this down here. While counter is less than 0, I'm going to remove first person in the array. Yep. So remove first person of the array. I'll just say remove last person in array. And then insert person into the end of the array. And I would know what that one is. That one's actually called, that's push. Push. And then this one is the pop, the built-in array method pop. Does anybody know off the top of their head, shift or unshift, to insert somebody in the beginning of the array?
Is it unshift?
Yes, it is. So
yep. Unshift.
Yep, unshift.
Adds to the beginning of the array.
All right, and then pop, and then remove the first person from the array, it would be shift. And then instead of decrementing the counter by 1, I'm going to increment the counter by 1. And then at the very end, I can just return the array of names because I'm manipulating this array. I'm sure that I'm pretty confident there's another way to do it, but this is just my first intuition how to do it. I'm sure there's some way to do it with modulus. I don't know. We can see that later. So let's just kind of convert this pseudocode into actual code. So I'm going to say let counter equals num of positions. I'm getting this number of positions from this input parameter. Then I could say if if num of positions is negative, so is, wait, is that what it is? No, if num of positions is positive, that's what I want. Yeah. Yeah, because pop, you want to move stuff so that it would be, right, okay. So if number of positions is greater than 0, I can just do an else right here, just real quick. So now I'm right here. While counter is greater than 0, I need to remove last person from the array, which is pop. So I'm gonna actually let name equals array of name. I'm just gonna change that real quick. Array of names dot pop, and then I'm gonna do insert into the beginning of the array of names dot unshift, and I'm gonna assign this variable name right here. Whoop. And let's just first, and then I'm gonna decrement counter by 1, counter negative, right? So let's just console log name right here, just to see what that looks like. And then let's actually console log array of names right after it, just to see what happens. So I'm gonna use this as an example down here. And so I'm going to be using this one as an example, because if I use a negative number, it's going to jump down to here, and nothing really will happen. So if I run this, I get Greg and Kenesha. Greg and Kenesha, and now I get, for the first, so while the counter is greater than 0, comes in here, removes Greg from the array, assigns it to this variable name, console logs it, and then I unshift it or add it to the beginning of the array by doing array of names dot unshift name. Now I'm console logging the array of names, so I can see Greg got popped off, and now he's getting added to the beginning of the array. I decrement the counter. Counter now is 1. Is 1 greater than 0? Yes. It pops off the last name now, which is Kenesha. That's where Kenesha is being console log here. And now I'm adding Kenesha to the beginning of the array right here. Then I'm decrementing counter by 1. So initially it was 1. Now it's 0. Counter is equals 0. So counter is no longer greater than 0. And so I can actually return array of names, because that's, if I run that, I'm passing one test case. All right, let's see if I can pass the other one. Does anybody have any questions about what I did up until this point? Oh, all right. So now we can kind of do the opposite right here. Well, counter is less than 0. Come here. Wow. Counter is less than 0. Open bracket, closing bracket. There's my closing bracket. I can come up here, remove the first person from the array. So I'm just going to kind of mirror let name equals array of names dot shift. I'm going to console log name right there. I'm going to actually delete this. And now I'm going to insert the person into the end of the array by doing array of names dot push name and console log. Can everyone see that still? Array of names. And now I'm going to increment, since I'm using a while loop, I always have to change this counter value. So I'm going to counter plus plus. And now, so it's pretty much the exact opposite of here. So now I'm going to test this one. So negative number, I'm going to run it. And there we go. The first person, Kyle, is being taken off the beginning of the array. and then it's added to the end of the array, and now I'm returning the array. If I do -2, if I run that, Kyle, Stacy, Kyle gets taken off the beginning of the array, added to the end of the array, and Stacy gets taken off the end of the beginning of the array, and then Stacy is added to the end of the array. And as the counter is incrementing, counter equals 0 now, because it started at -2. Loop through it once. Now it's -1 right here. And now it's 0. Then it breaks out, and then it returns, breaks out of the while loop, and then it returns right here. So if I run that, we pass all the test specs. What questions do you have about that? How I solved it? You could have definitely solved it another way. There's more than one way to solve it. Pretty much every single function. So I submit that. So there's a model solution. Let's check it out. It's probably way. All right, that does not look like a model solution. Fix that at some point. There we go. All right.